Hey everyone, Cleo here, welcome to my channel. Today I'll be wrapping up the month of April. Now the month of April to me was a bit of a disappointment, and it's not a disappointment because it's like the month in which I read the least books. It's the month in which I read 4 books, which is more or less my average. I read 4 books in 3 of the 4 months that have passed by at this point, so call me Mrs. Reliable. But I feel like there's a lot of lost potential this month because I finished 3 books like in 3 consecutive days before the midpoint of this month. So at this point I was thinking like I can definitely up the ante and can definitely go for 4 or 5 or maybe 6 books this month, but then The Sims happened, so I rediscovered my old love for The Sims, and I spent 2 weeks or something like that in which I only played The Sims when I got back from work, and I didn't read anything. And so at the end, actually the 4th book that I finished is a totally different book. It's just a romance book that I finished in 1 day. But okay, in the end I still got to 4 books, so I'm still 3 books ahead of my Goodreads count at this moment, so I have nothing to complain about, but I do hope that the month of May will see me reading a bit more, because I'm going to be participating in the Asian Readathon, and so I need to be finishing 5 books for that one. Plus I need to finish 1 book that I started in April, so yeah, that's quite ambitious, but we'll see. So for the month of April I finished 4 books. While I enjoyed some of them tremendously, all of them I ended up giving a 3.5 rating. Now the first book in the series of what I read this month is a book that I listened to an audiobook, so I'll just put a picture up here of the cover. And it's a book that a lot of people in BookTube are reading at the moment. It is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. If you've seen my review of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, you know that I was quite disappointed with that book, and that I really felt like I liked the writing style, and I was really intrigued in the beginning, but then I just couldn't be bothered anymore, couldn't care less. And for this book I feel like it didn't redeem Taylor Jenkins Reid to me in the slightest, sadly. So Daisy Jones and the Six is about, it's basically an account of the rise of a certain group called the Six, and then their involvement with Daisy Jones, who is also an up-and-comer singer. Now, as it is a rock and roll group, it has your usual mixture of drugs, rock and roll, and sex. The interesting thing here is that you have like the lead singer, who's like a recovering alcoholic, so he's struggling a lot with drugs and things like that at the beginning of the book, but then he gives it all up for the love of his life. And then you get this interesting dynamic in which you have him sobering up and having to deal with bandmates, with watching bandmates derail, and like having to distance himself from that in order not to give in to the temptation himself. So I thought that was very interesting. However, I liked it, you know, don't get me wrong, I liked it, but I wasn't as invested as everybody else, so I can do nothing else than try and give an opposite voice to most people, because I know a lot of people love this book, love the character of Daisy for being so real and vulnerable, but I mean, I've read a lot of real and vulnerable and characters, so I don't find that to be a reason to really love this book. There are plenty of books who know how to do that. So in my opinion, there was nothing that particular about Daisy Jones. I know some people even cry at the end. I'm not even sure why, because I mean, I was never emotionally invested in this story. So sadly for me, Daisy Jones and the Six still didn't do it. I gave it a 3.5 star rating because I listened to the audiobook, and I liked like the full cast reading of the audiobook, and I liked the dynamic you get when you get a full cast like that. Also because perspective changed very rapidly, so like it's not like you have a chapter in one perspective, a chapter in another. You have like you have like mixed interactions. Sometimes you just have like one sentence from one person and a sentence from another. Like what it does very interesting is show like how corrupt our memories are. So you'll have like one person saying that something happened this way, and the other person saying the opposite. Of course you can imagine that this might just be the person not wanting to tell the truth, but it might very well be that that person just remembers it differently. So I think that for me was like the most interesting aspect of the novel in its whole, like it's showing how how an event can be interpreted in very different ways by different people based on their emotional reaction to what is happening or their interpretation of what is happening. So yeah, sadly just 3.5 stars for me for that one. And then 3.5 stars is the average rating for everything. I mean, average is the rating I gave every book in this month. And so the same goes for a childhood favorite that I'm still considering one of my childhood favorites, just not this book. And so that is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I'm reading it in Spanish, so that's why I have a different edition here. I'm trying to reread all Harry Potters, so I reread 1, 2 and 3 last year. I'm reading 4 and 5 this year and 5 and 6 for next year in my attempt to rank all of the Harry Potter books based on my enjoyment of them. If I have to go by what I've already read, this is going to be the lowest one. Now, Goblet of Fire has never been like the book that I would say is like my least enjoyable Harry Potter. It's just the one that I like don't remember, it seems. It's the one that I always forget about when I'm looking at like the best or the worst, so you would think it's just somewhere in the middle. But upon rereading it, I had to change my opinion about it. So what I missed in this book is the traditional structure with like the Quidditch matches, the Halloween party, the Christmas break. I mean, it's very much possible that some of these are still in there, but it just didn't feel the same anymore, you know, with the whole addition of the Triwizard Tournament. Also, it takes way too long before they actually reach Hogwarts. So I liked the addition of the Quidditch World Cup. I just felt like too much time was spent on the Quidditch World Cup, and it would have been like better to just limit that part a little bit. And then I didn't like the Triwizard Tournament interfering with the classic structure of a school year, but also I just didn't like the premise of the Triwizard Tournament because I think it is faulty. I mean, there's a rule that under 16-year-olds are not allowed to participate in the Triwizard Tournament, yet except for the competing houses, nobody raises objections to the fact that cat hair to the fact that Harry is participating in the Triwizard Tournament. I mean, it's a Triwizard Tournament, there need to be 3 wizards, so you have a 4th wizard, he's underage as well, and so of course these other houses are complaining about the fact that a second Hogwarts representative is chosen, and I don't understand why Dumbledore doesn't object to Harry competing in it. I mean, what's this unspoken rule that anybody who's been named needs to compete in the Triwizard Tournament? I mean, if it is indeed the case that if your name is called, you need to participate, then there has to be a reason for that, except for you telling that that is the rule, you know? What is the consequence of not having him participate in the tournament? Because it would seem to me like it's very logical to just say, sorry Harry, you're not allowed to participate, so you won't participate. So yeah, that was my main beef with it. I just cannot get behind the fact that there is no conclusive reasoning behind the reason why Harry has to compete in the Triwizard Tournament. On the positive side, I liked a lot of representation for like rites of passage that are in here, like the boys having to ask girls out on a date, the whole Yule Ball sequence in which you have the guys like awkwardly standing on one side of the room looking like, okay, are we gonna ask somebody to dance or what? It was just very real, that part. I also liked the trio dynamic in which you have the falling out between Ron and Harry at some point, which is also very relatable, very understandable, very real in a friendship situation in which one person is always the center of attention and the others are more like the sidekicks. So I really like that aspect of this book, but for this reading experience I have to give it a 3.5. It's still gonna have a special place in my heart as part of the Harry Potter series, but I cannot say that I really enjoyed this reread of it. So I'm very interesting to see, because I never considered it to be the worst of the Harry Potter books, so we'll see. The 6th is a big contender for worst of the Harry Potter books, so we'll see when I finish that one. Maybe suddenly it will become one of my favorites, you never know. And the 3rd book, hey Faith, I have a cat assisting me here, giving me my books. So the third book that I finished this month is the Rosie Result by Graeme Simsion. This is the third book in the series, so I won't be able to say much about this book in particular. Instead I'll talk about the Rosie Project. So the Rosie Project is about Tom Tillman, who is a very science-oriented person. He's a geneticist and he looks at everything like according to scientific laws or something like that. And so he also says, why not go about finding the perfect wife in a scientific way? And so he starts the Wife Project, in which he's trying to find himself the perfect wife. And enter Rosie, who is totally incompatible to his idea of a perfect partner, but still the chaos and the uncertainty that she introduces into his life is opening him up to feelings that he has never previously explored. So as you can imagine, this is a romantic comedy series. I really loved it. Like, Don is like super scientific, which makes you assume that he is on the spectrum in some way or another. And the Rosie Result is a Jordan series, so I cannot say too much about it, just that it seemed to be a bit stale to me at this point, you know. I really enjoyed the first one. The second one was already a little bit less in my enjoyment than the third one. To me it was still enjoyable, but it just felt like the story has wore itself out, basically. I liked some of the conclusions that we reached in this story. I think it's very important representation wise, but enjoyment wise this was a meh. I liked it, but it was also not as good as the original, which is the reason why it's going down in rating to 3.5 as everything else this month. And then the final book that I read on my e-reader, and that is, now I have to think about it because I finished like 2 romance books in like 3 days. The other one will be my May wrap-up. And this one was Dreaming of You by Lisa Kleypas, yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it, Lisa Kleypas. So romance is a genre that I dabble in from time to time, but I consider it like reality TV wise. So it's a genre that I enjoy, but I also always feel like I've been reading or watching crap, like it wasn't worth it, and it was just pure entertainment wise. So that's not saying like if you enjoy it perfectly, I also enjoy it clearly. If you think it's worth it, definitely. I mean, the reason why I just try to limit my amount of it is just because afterwards I always feel like I didn't read anything that was worth anything. Mainly also because they're so forgettable for me. So I already had to think forever about the title of that book. And now I'm gonna have to do a lot of difficulty to distinguish it from the other book, even though they're very different, but it's just like it goes in one eye and out the other, I would say. So for me they're very forgettable, and that's why I try to limit it, because I like the entertainment value of it while I'm reading it, but afterwards I just don't have any memory of it or any recollection of it. It's never gonna be, these are never gonna be the books that I'm gonna be remembering later on in life as being like, that time when I read that book, that was such a wonderful book. So I read them for entertainment value from time to time, but I try to limit them just because I don't like the actual value that these books will place in my overall reading year. But so Dreaming of You is a book about so it's a girl who's a writer, and she's doing researches in like the more dodgy sides of London, and then she stumbles upon a fight between 3 men, and 2 of them are like holding down one guy and slashing his face, and she kind of wards off these guys, and then by doing so saves this person. But this person's like the biggest, like the guy with the worst reputation in London. He's the owner of a gaming facility, and he's not looked upon very like. He's very disreputable, he's a very bad reputation, but so he takes her under his wing to kind of protect her, because she's doing all of these things that he feels a proper lady shouldn't be doing, and of course a romance ensues. So romance-wise, I really enjoyed this one, you know. It's one of the books that I enjoy more out of the romance genre. That might just be because I've taken like a 2-year break from the romance genre, so it's newer to me again, versus when I was really in the height of like reading a lot of romances. They all started to blend into one. But so romance wise I really enjoyed it, but as I said before, I just only gave it 3.5 star rating because in my overall year, this book will make no impression upon me at all. But so if you really like romance, I would tell you, like, consider this one. Definitely if you like the whole sort of like, if you like the rogue character, you know, the bad boy character, then this is definitely worth it. The bad boy who actually secretly has a heart of gold. Such a stereotype. I don't like it in most of books, but in romance I don't care about stereotypes at all, because it's all one big stereotype. But so yeah, that was my reading month for the month of April. I also started a book. I've got like halfway through in the month of April, but you'll be hearing about that one hopefully in my May wrap-up. Maybe also my May TBR. I don't know whether I'll be mentioning it or whether I'll just stick to the Asian readathon. But in any case, if you like my video, then please give it a thumbs up. It will really help my channel a lot. If you want to be informed about future videos that I do, then definitely also hit that bell icon. I don't have a fixed schedule. Sadly, in the month of April I only finished one video, which was not my April TBR, but my March wrap-up, so I still have to publish my April TBR. I don't know whether I will actually publish it or not. So yeah, Sims really hurt my scheduling. But so yeah, I hope to be picking this up in the month of May. I should pick this up in the month of May. See you guys for the next one.